Happy Monday, everybody. Hope everybody's week is off to an awesome start here. My name's Aaron Kona. I'm the co-founder and managing director of BWG Connect. We're a networking and knowledge sharing group of thousands of brands who do exactly that. We network and knowledge share together to stay on top of the newest trends, strategies, pain points, different topics, anything that's shaping digital growth today. I connect with somewhere between 30 and 40 brands a week to stay on top of those trends and help them out with everything from strategy to collecting their thoughts on pain points, and that's where we get the topics for these calls. Also do a lot of help on the service provider selection side. So if anybody needs a short list of, whether it's Amazon agencies, it's direct consumer, performance marketing, international expansion, if you ever need a short list, shoot me a note and kind of the topics, and we can connect on those. And those are all the top recommended service providers from brands within the network as a whole. It's also where we get the resident experts for our call. So it should be a great one today. A couple housekeeping items before we actually hit go on this webinar, and that is we're starting 3 to 4 minutes after the hour, and we're going to wrap up with 3 to 4 minutes to go in it as well. So just know you're going to get onto your next meeting without being late. The other one is we want these to be as educational and informational as possible. So at any point in time, if you have a question, drop it into the chat, or drop it into the Q&A, or email it to me, Aaron, AARON at bwgconnect.com. And that can be an hour after the call tomorrow, next week. We usually get you an answer in under a day. So don't ever hesitate. If you have any questions in this space, just reach out and we'll get back with you. With that, I'm going to go ahead and kick this off. So a lot of talk is there's been a huge emphasis on Amazon advertising this year. Obviously, that all doubles down in Q4. Everybody in the past year, I should say in 2020, kind of got a pass on, hey, any kind of really deep diving analytics reporting out, at the CMO suite or the CFO level. But 2021 is proving to be a little bit different. And so a huge focus on optimizing Amazon advertising as a whole. And as we have it here, how to find the balance between organic and paid traffic as part of a full funnel strategy as a whole. So anyways, we've got some great friends, great partners of the network as a whole that are here. And like I said, they're here to not only give us as much data as they can, but also answer as many questions as we can throw at them. And I'm going to kick it over to you, Mike, if you want to jump in first with a brief intro on yourself and Profitero, and then we can kick it over to Nicole and Retail Bloom. But if you want to kick us off, that'd be fantastic. And then we'll kick it over to Nicole.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron. So I'm Mike Black. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Profitero. We are an e-commerce analytics platform. And what we do is we help brands understand how their products are performing on 600 unique retailer sites, starting with Amazon all the way to Walmart, Best Buy, and even in JD and some of the sites around the world. And so really quickly, what this visual tells you is what we're actually tracking daily for brands in terms of performance metrics, starting with is it available, where are you showing up in search, to the healthier content, all the way down to the ability to estimate sales and market share for your categories on Amazon, down to the 3P and 1P. So a full view of the path to purchase and the experience that your consumers are having on these retail websites.
Thanks, Mike. Hey, everyone. I'm Nicole Reich, co-founder at Retail Bloom. So just a quick snapshot before we get into our agenda. We specialize in helping our brands with whichever Amazon, Walmart, or marketplace strategy is best for them. So high level on the top, we have 2 models. The first one on the top is managed service models, very familiar with Seller Central, Vendor Central, hybrid models. Doesn't matter which way you sell on the platform. Our services are pretty consistent. So on the top portion, brand protection, which we talked a lot last month in our session with BWG on that, but we also do content, customer service, expansion, marketing and advertising, and reporting. And then on the 3P side, we do basically all of those things above, and then also stand as a third-party seller. So we're able to carry and sell inventory, do fulfillment services for the brands that we work with. So in today's session, we are going to first, sorry about that. We're going to first talk a little bit about the state of Amazon advertising, how the space is changing, and what it means for your business. After that, we'll talk about looking at advertising as a piece of a more holistic approach, which should include promotions, advertising with a specific budget based on target audience, content optimizations, and then helping you then understand how to track organic ranking from these efforts. So our goal after this session is that you leave here learning a little bit more on how to best measure the impact of this holistic approach, how to prioritize content optimizations going into Q4, and then how to make the most of your advertising budget as cost per click rises. So as for the format, we're going to keep it pretty conversational like we always do. Mike and I are going to go back and forth on what he sees in the space and how we use Profitero to take action. And then as always, Aaron will chime in with questions. I will say Mike and I have a ton to go over today. So if we don't get to every question, one of us will follow up with an email and shoot you what we think is the answer based on the questions that we don't get into. So with that, I want to start with Amazon advertising. Some just big updates. So our biggest talking points going into Q4, outside of the logistics hurdles that we're seeing, is wrapping our heads around the best way to handle the increase in competition and ad space on Amazon. In the right chart, I've pulled some cost per click data from one of our advertising partners, PackView, and in this you can see how cost has changed over the past 12 months. On average, we're seeing cost per click for sponsored product ads increase about 36%, and sponsored brands increase 9%. This makes sense because on the sponsored brand side, again, only brand registered brands can actually do those ads. So it's not surprising to see that sponsored product ads, which is open to all third-party sellers, is getting more expensive and that cost per click is going up. So when you think about why that might be happening, there's several reasons, but we see two big things happening today. One, more brands are understanding the importance of Amazon as it relates to e-com and spending significantly more than what they had in the past. Potentially, we're seeing brands, shift ad dollars from Google and social to Amazon, or maybe they're keeping everything consistent and they're just increasing their bids on Amazon. And then the other thing is that Amazon is more of a pay-to-play platform than it ever has been in the past. So just to give you an idea of what that looks like from the front end, it was only maybe 3 years ago when the most dominant ad space for sponsored product ads was just the first two ad spaces. So, back in the day, I can say, funny enough, you go to Amazon, you search for a certain word, and maybe the first two placements are sponsored product ads. Sponsored brands weren't there in green, sponsored video wasn't there in orange. But now when you look at something like Halloween candy, which I just pulled the other day, you can see the entire top section is paid in green. The sponsored product ads have moved from 2 slots to 4 slots, sometimes up to 6, depending on how big the first row is. Then you have some organic on the right, then it's followed up by in-search video, which is paid, and then you scroll down with a little bit more organic and then some more paid. So it is getting much more paid platform, like I said, in that if you ranked organically well, that's great, but know that these paid placements are on top of those organic spots.
Yeah, and just to back that up with some data, so we at Profitero actually just recently used our digital shelf platform to examine the number of sponsored ad spots that are showing up on different retailer sites. So, what we just saw is Amazon, how much space they're allocating, and you can see at the top, that's actually the trend line that we're seeing with Amazon. So on average, we're seeing about 8 to 9 spots of real estate on page 1 that has to be purchased in the form of sponsored ads. And this is looking at an aggregate of keywords. So for some keywords, that's going to be more, for some less, but in general. And what's interesting to me is also looking ahead to seeing how other retailers are starting to follow. So the very next line where you see that big spike, not surprisingly, that is Walmart. So Walmart in the last year has almost tripled the amount of real estate that it has on its site that has to be purchased in forms of sponsored ads. And then behind then you see a little bit less of activity from other retailers. However, another retailer where we're seeing movement is Home Depot. Lowe's just followed suit last week with their own media platform. So what's interesting to me is that Amazon is setting the trend and the other retailers are following. So a lot of the principles that we're going to cover today about how do you get more efficiency from your ad spend on Amazon I think are more and more going to be applicable to other retailers as they build out their ad networks and as many of them build out their 3P marketplaces as well.
Cool. So that's a downside, right? But more optimistically, Amazon is also improving their visibility and giving brands and sellers more ways to measure the impact of their ad efforts. So yes, you spend more, but you can measure more too, which has always been kind of a complaint since I've been in the Amazon space, is that they aren't always great at telling you where traffic is coming from, what the return of Amazon posts are, for example. So we're continuously seeing huge improvements from Amazon advertising and continuously seeing releases of new product information or new ways to look at the data. So they're doing so much of that right now that blue link on the left side is directs you to the Amazon advertising product releases pages. And what they're doing there is basically consolidating. Every time they make an improvement, they're telling users about it. And I would say that there's probably 45 in the last 30 days of just updates that they're coming out with. Some are big, some are small, some are for the international piece, some are for domestic. But on the left side here, I've basically outlined some of the big ones that we see. So the top one, Amazon Attribution Beta. This one is worth noting because it's been around for a while in beta form, but they recently built it into the Amazon advertising platform. And it's also getting a lot easier to access what the difference is of where traffic is coming from, where you're spending, and where you're seeing sales results. So in the beginning, when the Amazon Attribution Beta was out, I kind of understood the concept of it, of being able to track, for example, Facebook traffic that goes to Amazon, but it wasn't clear. You had to make a lot of assumptions, and they're getting a lot better about their tagging system, the way that you're setting up the campaigns. So it's a lot easier to see now if you're driving traffic from Google or from Facebook to Amazon. What does that look like? What are you spending versus what are you selling? And then also the other way around, right? What are you spending on Amazon that may move to your B2C channel or your social channel and purchase there? So that's been awesome. And then the other 3 updates are all related to sponsored display, which for us has been pretty insightful, because with a lot of the brands we've worked with for many years that have had smaller budgets, we sometimes neglected or didn't really understand the opportunity of sponsored display because we were so discouraged by the high ACoS we were seeing early on. So for example, when we did branded sponsored product ads, we saw an ACoS of 5% for so long that when we came in with a little bit more upper funnel sponsored display ads, we all kind of shied away from that because the return wasn't as immediate and the ACoS was really a little bit higher. So that we actually will talk a little bit overall when we get to budgets, but just high level, Amazon is giving you much more opportunity to tweak and optimize those sponsored display ads. You're now able to remarket and reach audience based on historical purchase behaviors. You're able to switch out your creative and starting from scratch for those call to action banner ads, which has been huge. So another complaint that we used to have, and it's still happening on the sponsored brands, is that we'll have some great history and traction on a call to action banner for Black Friday, right? Hey, here's some, best gifts for Christmas. That'll run really well, but on January 1, we basically have to start from scratch again because we weren't able to tweak the creative. So you would either have to pay for both ads to run at the same time when the new one increased its ranking or its traffic, and then cancel it, or completely cancel the old one and not have that visibility and see a drop in traffic. So that's been really helpful on the sponsored display ads. The other thing is you can now see new to brand metrics for sponsored display, which is available for sponsored brands. I haven't heard about this for sponsored products, but I think that would be awesome. And just another way to see how you are increasing market share and acquiring new customers on the platform.
Yeah, and I'll just say that there's the data that Amazon will give you access to, but there's also a lot more data that you can get through third-party tools such as Profitero that will give you insights into some of the competitive dynamics. So that's often lacking in the Amazon's platform, is that deep knowledge of competitors. And so some of the data that will be really important to have into a season like this is, one, having competitive sales and market share. We'll talk about it later, but so important to have that benchmark to help you understand what's moving the needle, as well as to really identify and make sure you're going after the right competitors to be watching. Second is pricing and promotion. So all of the variables that are happening with price, as much as you're controlling your price, your competitors are too. So important that you're able to see what they're doing from a price and promotions perspective to be able to capitalize on that. And then also, as we'll talk about, it's so much more important than ever to have a good view of your competitors' inventory health and out of stock. And those are things that you really can get using third-party tools that are going to go out and collect that data off of websites. So just a couple other examples of ways to go that next mile and maybe get access to insights that your competitors don't even have.
So knowing that all costs have gone up, right? Manufacturing, labor, materials, freight, just speed of having availability of inventory. You know, I said logistics in the beginning being our biggest pain point. Ad spend is close up there, right? So it's a little hard to talk about, yes, all my costs are going up. Competition is bigger on Amazon than it ever has been. And by the way, now you're telling me that I have to pay more in advertising. Yes, that's basically what we're saying. So with those considerations, we're really making a push to look at your Amazon strategy more holistically, which should be more full funnel than just paid. So we'll start with content optimizations, questions that we get all the time. I have a huge catalog, I have minimal resources. How the heck do I know what to do first and not overwhelm my marketing or creative teams when I go to them and say, we need 12 videos, they all need to look like this, and by the way, I need them tomorrow before Q4. So I'm gonna pass it to Mike to share some data about what he sees moves the needle the most, and then after that, we'll talk about how we're using that data to make decisions and prioritize content on our end with our brands.
Yeah, so one of the very first things, Nicole, that you were talking about is the importance of balancing with organic. And we have actually seen this in our own research at Profitero, where you can get about 4x more sales by getting your products to page one organically than through paid ads. So certainly the earned approach matters. But how do you go about prioritizing that? And one of the things that we recommend and you can do when you have the right data set, such as search placement and content attributes, is that you can do basically try to reverse engineer some of the algorithmic components of a retailer site. So what you're looking at here is actually a heat map that shows which content attributes are most highly correlated or highly related to increases in search rank and search position. And what we included other retailers here too, because what you might want to think about is, I'm sure many of you sell on platforms other than Amazon, and you also want to think about prioritizing across your portfolio. So what you're going to see here is effectively of all things that you could focus on to drive your search placement up on Amazon, you want to be focused on titles, right? Keywords and titles, but you also want to be focused on reviews and star ratings. So it's as important that you have a strategy for title optimization as well as reviews, that you're also trying to do everything you can to create more reviews for the products that you have. And so that's a really important thing that you want to suss. And therefore, your strategy for boosting search results on Amazon is going to be more multifaceted than if you look at some of the other retailer sites, such as Kroger, for example. Right? It's going to be fewer things that you can do to influence. So it's really important that you understand what are the things and the levers that drive organic search placement, and then have a strategy accordingly that can prioritize those things, and being able to look at products that are missing key attributes in their titles, as well as products that are underperforming benchmarks when it comes to reviews. That will give you a leading indicator for how to dissect your portfolio. Next slide is the other thing that we have studied and looked at is just the correlations between increases in sales, traffic, conversions with the addition of enhanced content. And so what we've done has looked at how adding videos, adding images, and how improving enhanced content, adding A+ content has an impact. One of the things that we've consistently seen is that adding video to a product that does not have video on average can increase your sales by almost 60%. And then you can see that images is not too far behind on average, increasing sales by 45%. So one of the lowest hanging fruit that we see is being able to just do an analysis of your portfolio to identify products that are missing video, missing images, and just start by working on those products to get them up to benchmark. And so those are things that are ways to prioritize where you attack by looking at where you're going to see the greatest lift and where you're going to see the greatest impact.
Really quick, just a question, just a reminder of those who have joined after we kick this off. If you have any questions along the way, drop into the chat, drop them into the question section there, or just email them to me, Aaron, AARON at bwgconnect.com. But when it says number of times keywords are mentioned in titles, is it talking about keyword repetition or keyword variety?
Keyword repetition of the same keyword for this particular cut we're looking at.
Cool. So considering that data, when we start working with the brands, we start with kind of an optimization schedule by month. So we take the catalog and say, okay, what's your top 80-20, right? How do we prioritize this 40,000 SKUs down to per month optimization so that it's best digestible for both sides? Because we know when we start working with brands, they have to give us assets. Maybe sometimes they have to create assets. So there's some weight gain there. So we start with just saying, okay, forget the entire catalog. Let's narrow it down to maybe rounds of content of 10. So 10 parent styles at a time, we're optimizing each month. And as soon as one group is done, we kind of move on to the next. So what I've done here is kind of outlined the way we prioritize those top 10, for example, or round one content. So when we start, we focus on product merges first, which we talk a lot about the other ones below this. And I think that there's sometimes a big miss of the value of product merges and how merchandising can make a huge impact to review. So after we get through this slide, I'm going to touch on that one specifically, but we group product merges together with titles and then Amazon store. And I know that's a little different than what Mike had just mentioned, but the reason that we do that is mostly for advertising, is that if a brand already has a good strategy, we know that we're going to need the titles optimized with keywords if they allow it, right? And we know we're going to have the Amazon store update to drive our advertising efforts. So that's usually prioritized first, especially if the brand already has a pretty good presence on the platform. But then after that, we focus on imagery, video, and then product bullets, usually in that order. Again, Mike had mentioned that video drives conversion more than imagery, right? So it would make sense that we do that first. But what we find is that brands get good at imagery first, and then they do video second. So the reason a lot of times we do imagery first is because we take all of the assets that are available and say, okay, what can we get on Amazon already without doing anything, right? And we look at the alternate images, we look at the size charts, and then from there we say, okay, now what do we need for these top 10 products? And a lot of times it's text overlay comparisons, right? It's showing the customers how they can use the product and then using that same type of information to build out the videos, then product bullets, then A+ pages, then the new brand story. So of course we want to do everything all at one time, but because a lot of the catalogs are so big and sometimes the assets aren't always available, we start to prioritize in this way. So doubling down a little bit on product merges, I wanted to show you the power of just getting like images, like products all on one parent. So the goal of doing product merges is that in this scenario, for the example on the right, Black Forest Decor, one of the brands we work with, they have over 60,000 SKUs in their catalog. And basically prior to doing the merges, it was list it, get it available. You know, if it's one lamp that's rustic and then the next one lamp is beach, let's just throw them up on Amazon, and if it sells, great, we'll optimize each product listing and title. And that was a lot of work, and it was a lot of seasonality going in and out of work. So we found ourselves updating content just for the next month for it to go out of stock, and then all of that work was basically meaningless. So we switched up our strategy earlier this year to say, we're gonna put all of the lamps together. We're gonna make sure that people understand on the left side the different videos or the different imagery, why they're different, right? Make sure it's clear that this one image is different than the next, this product's different than the next. But what happened was that basically overnight, we grew that parent ASIN to have over 562 ratings. And with all of those reviews, the ranking got better and the sales got better, which I'll show you in a second. So it was merging listings that were like, knowing that some will go out of stock and some won't, and new products will come out and we'll have to merge them to our product listing. Then we optimize titles, we figure out the secondary images, you know, we optimize the bullets, we add video. This particular one doesn't have a video, but the next variation does. So you have to be careful about that. But then we wanted to measure what the results were. And what we found is that when we started merging in June, this is kind of a chart of the ranking, we saw a huge lift in ranking. So you can see that this chart went down right after the listings were together. So the lower the ranking, the more it's selling, right? And then when we added the content, we saw another dip that was around the end of July into August. And then we added images and saw another dip. So over this, call it 4-month period, our ranking improved by 42% and our units sold improved by 35%. So the way that we did this test is we looked at all of these product listings again, right, as separate different parents, one product, one parent ASIN, measured what their ranking was, measured what the sales were, and then when we combined them, we said, okay, collectively, how are they doing now? Sorry about that. I know you guys, I always complain about how I switch to the slides too fast. So hopefully you can see this a little bit back and forth there. But this is the power of merging, is that yes, content will move the needle. Yes, imagery will move the needle. But when you can increase the reviews and get it all in one space, it's a better customer experience. And then Amazon seeing all of those reviews in one place and providing a little bit more credibility to that parent ASIN. So other merchandising considerations, I would say, is trying to find the balance between share of shelf and reviews and ranking. So a lot of the, sometimes we get pushback and sometimes it doesn't work for smaller catalogs when they say, yeah, we can merge all of these, but then on the first page, we're losing real estate because Amazon will only serve the parents, right? So it's a lot of testing that has to be done. So on the right side, I'll give you another example. The first one box, you can see all the single units of another one of our brand toe socks. And what we found is that after a couple years, these one sock product listings, right, had a low margin because the AOV was so small. So what we wanted to do was add variations or case packs, which is on the right, to increase the AOV and then basically drive the margin, like the pickup, right to the bottom line. The problem with that is that when we created those case packs on the right, there weren't any reviews. So we had our bestseller listing and then we had no traffic organically happening on the case pack level. So what we started with was we first took those case packs, put them to the single to get the lift, to get the visibility, knowing that people were going to purchase the case pack of 2 because of a discounted price, waited for the reviews to come up on those children items, and then then we basically split the parent again. So now that the case packs are on their own, you have 2 packs, 3 packs, and then you have the single packs on the left. And that approach worked really, really well. I will tell you, it probably took, 6 to 12 months, depending on the different styles. And there was a portion that on the single packs, it looked a little messy, which is why we wanted to clean it up. But that was the best way of us getting reviews fast and not having to go through like an early review program or an Amazon bind. So I would say that would be a consideration, right? Make sure that if your catalog is so small, if you put your 2 best sellers together, that probably isn't the best approach because those probably both worked well, organically ranked on their own. But if you're trying to expose another product that is completely starting from scratch or has less visibility, put it on your target halo product and then separate it after it has that ranking.
Yeah, so just really quick, there's a couple questions that have come through around content as a whole. For number of characters in product title, that was red for Amazon. How many characters is too many? And we have one more for that.
So Mike, I'll say my perspective, and then you can quote me if I say it the wrong way. But so there are different, the number of characters per title changes based on the category that you're in. So I would first check there. So it used to be that basically every category you could have 150 characters in the titles. Now they're limiting that in certain categories. Mike, are you seeing the same?
Yeah, so basically that's why it's valuable to have benchmarking built in. So every category is going to be different. So what you want to be able to do is benchmark regularly on either bestsellers as an indicator, or another thing which we do is we have benchmarks based on any retailer on page 1 placement. So you can see what are the common characteristics or content attributes for products that are ranking on page 1. And that's going to be category specific again. So that's where the value of having benchmarks is really important. And it does change, to Nicole's point. It's something that you have to keep taking a look at and refreshing.
Awesome. So next one is, how is it that video increases traffic more than enhanced brand content, A+? Surprising, given that A+ content provides more keywords. The conventional wisdom was always that video increased conversion, but not necessarily traffic. I'd love to hear, is Amazon just indexing against videos now?
I have a theory on this, and I think part of it is there's a little bit of a reinforcing loop. So anytime you improve conversion, you improve traffic, I think, right? Because you're effectively, if you're improving conversion, you're going to probably see a little bit of a tick up on where your search placement is as well. So sometimes you see these traffic and conversion metrics, and it's like one could be supporting the other in some ways. So that's one theory that I have on that.
Yeah, I would add to that. So two things. One, comparing A+ to video. So if you think about, let's call it 50, even maybe more % of sales happening on mobile, few customers are scrolling all the way down to get to A+. So they don't see it, it's buried. Video is right at the top, so is imagery. So that's really helpful. That's the way customers are looking at your products. And then to further kind of back up Mike's point, it's that flywheel effect, right? So if they go there, if they convert because of the video, Amazon's going to see that, give you more credibility, and then your organic ranking will lift. So it's not a direct, I guess what I would say is you can do A/B testing, right? We can do it through Profitero, through Seller Central, but Amazon's not going to tell you. You have to make some assumptions, just like Profitero did in this data, to say, all right, when I added my video and all other things were constant, what happens to sales, traffic, and conversion? And most of the time you see the conversion first, which then triggers the traffic, which then triggers the sales.
Yeah, one other point to that too is I've done A/B testing studies with clients, and it was to change out the not the hero image, but the secondary image in the carousel. And one of the things that this client did, it was actually Masterlock, it's a public case study. They changed the image of this the safe they were showing in the angle, and the metric increase you saw was both almost consistent, was about 25-30% increase in conversion, and then about a 25-30% increase in traffic. And so changing the image to increase conversion is also having an impact on the traffic and its placement, basically.
Yeah, cool. So bear with me as I click through the rest of the slides for a second and get back to where we were. Okay, so flipping now to advertising. So we talked a little bit about content, helping you guys prioritize what you need to do first. Let's go back to advertising. Again, the cost per click is increasing, right? What do we do about it? So this is another challenge for us, that when we approach advertising, it's a little bit different than what we did in the past. So gone are the days that you could set up branded campaigns, see a really low ACoS, have that conversion, spark the flywheel, and now all of a sudden you don't have to pay as much for advertising because you have all of this organic lift. That was great. That unfortunately is no longer the scenario that's happening on Amazon. So instead of that, what we are starting with, again, when we're approaching high-level advertising, is what is your goal of these advertising efforts, okay? And where are you targeting, or where do you want to target the customer in their life cycle or in the funnel, right? So at the bottom is conversion, which is what we're very typically used to, that we used to love, right? So think sponsored product ads, branded keywords. For example, you're selling Nike shoes, you bid on Nike shoes, they purchase, great. Maybe your tacos budget at that point was 2.5%. Let's say after that, you say, well, I want to go up a little bit in the funnel. I want to go after running shoes, athletic shoes. Well, when that happens, know that the cost per click is more expensive because those keywords are more generic, right? We're on the right side of this chart right now with the generic keywords. And with that, you need to be increasing your tacos. You need to be spending more, knowing that you might not get the return. And then from there on the right side, right, it's competitors. So now you're going after Adidas, Under Armour. Those might not as convert well. You're trying to acquire or conquest other competitor customers that were already looking for Adidas, and now they're going to be pulling for Nike, right? Then you can go even broader to category or demographic. So maybe now you're going after the running space as a whole, and you want to target awareness. So as you go up the funnel, just know that you have to increase your budget and know that you can't expect a return right away. So on the right side, we have our keyword types or our target type, what type of words we want to use or who do we want to target. And then on the left, we have the different types of ads that support those efforts. So I know sponsored product and sponsored brand can be used, pretty similarly. So it kind of depends on what type of terms you want to go after, but just high level, right? Sponsored product ads, if you really want to just own your brand, you set up branded ads for the top headline banner in those sponsored product ads, you may need 2.5% of total sales to be invested in advertising. But as you go up, for example, you need to be adding 5%, 10%, whatever it might be. So a lot of times we get questions from brands, what's our ideal tacos? It depends. It really does depend. It depends on the category. It depends on your AOV. Depends on how many people are in the space driving up that cost per click. But what I will tell you is that if your goal is to increase awareness, you have to spend a lot more than if your goal is to increase profitability, right? Because you're going to be much more selective if you're looking at the bottom line, which means you're going to go down funnel. But if you want new to brand customers, if you're looking to acquire customers, know that you have to spend more as you go up.
Yeah, and so big fan of frameworks. Funnels are great frameworks, but another framework I love to talk to brands about is a performance-based framework. So in addition to planning your budget based on goals, it's also important to take an outside-in look and look at actually what products are performing the best or the healthiest, retail-ready, healthiest products in your portfolio. And what you see here, this is a stylized version of a visualization we have in our app, which plots your ASINs on a vector of traffic, high traffic, low traffic, high conversion, and low conversion. And so what that allows you to do is to understand which products are actually converting the highest. So if you look in the upper right, these are your high traffic, high converting products. These are the products you want to defend at all costs. These are your hardest working products. So you may want to really up your defensive spend in that segment. Versus if you look at the lower left quadrant, these are the products that have low traffic, low conversion. Typically, we find these are the products that are struggling the most to stay in stock. So it's very risky and maybe not efficient to be allocating too much dollars to this, especially now with a lot of supply issues. And one of your biggest opportunity is going to be in your lower right quadrant. Here you're going to find products that have high conversion but low traffic. They're essentially invisible to most shoppers. So what we typically find is one way that you can grow market share around a period like this is to actually look for some of these products that have low traffic right now and actually shift some of your budget to them to actually gain share. And we've had customers do this quite successfully and have been able to grow their market share when they thought that they were tapped out. So oftentimes you're tapped out, you think, we got the market share, where can we go? That's when you have to do this kind of analysis and go to that next level and really start to understand, where am I spending my dollars on at a product level, not just our goals. Let's look at what's working the best for consumers and what's working the best for the retailers, and let's shift our budget accordingly. So this is another framework I would encourage you to investigate and use as you're planning your budgets for Q4 and beyond.
Yeah, I think I missed that part, Mike. Sorry. So just, what the portion I was talking about was high level strategy, right? How do you determine your budget? Now, Mike is talking a little bit more tactical, right? So here's our budget. We've already approved that over the next 12 months. How do we make the most of that and pivot quickly? So sorry, I missed that, Mike, that I wanted to add.
Just where do you spread your bets? It's not always even, right? You need to pick particular products to rally behind. Yeah. So the other speaking tactically, one of the very most important things around advertising way to win is to be ready to pivot quickly, especially in the time that we're facing right now with a lot of things shifting daily. And one of the best practices that we are seeing brands do more and more is tracking their competitors' inventory health and setting up alerts to be notified when a competitor product is out of stock. Whether that is, sometimes we see it set up on a weekly basis, sometimes we're seeing it set up on a daily basis. And what that will do will allow you to understand potential competitive products that you want to conquest with sponsored ads, but also product ads, actually getting your product on their PDPs. And this is something that you want to have set up on, with data that's available on a daily basis. Next slide, Nicole. I'll give you a really good example of a client that did this well last year. We have a client at Profitero, mid-sized toy brand that is competing very heavily with Barbie. They sell dollhouses, but as we all know, Barbie owns the dollhouse world, and very hard to compete with a brand like that has national advertisement. So one of the things they did is they started tracking Barbie Dream House. They're out of stocks during the holiday season, and lo and behold, they were able to identify that Barbie Dream House was out of stock. They then ran a conquesting campaign, a sponsored ad and product campaign, and they were able to increase their share of page one on Barbie by 3x, and then actually achieve about 10% week over week incremental sales. So basically siphoning Barbie traffic their way. Just an example of something that we think it could be leveraged a lot in the holiday. And then finally, in terms of measuring success, one of the things, market share is going to be one of your top lagging indicators that's going to answer the question when the dust settles, how did we actually do? And during the pandemic, so oftentimes we've seen categories just grow and everybody's growing, and then you're like, all right, let's pat ourselves on the back, when in reality, what you'll find is that your competitors may be growing faster than you, gaining share faster, and that's going to be an ultimate test for our strategies really driving that growth. What are our competitors doing that might be better? And so you want to have access to 1P market share to be able to look at that, as well as access to, if you're selling 1P, 3P sales data, where are you losing opportunities to sellers or by losing the buy box? So we recommend having market share as being one of your scorecards that you're looking at throughout the season.
Well, so lastly, we want to talk about balancing advertising with promotion. So if you're spending $50,000 a month, for example, on advertising, who's to say that some of that budget isn't better spent through campaigns like coupons or best deals? And on top of that, I know on our last call, it was totally the pricing police and told everyone that they need to increase MAP and decrease sellers and keep pricing consistent. But sometimes, it's good to have consistent pricing, but sometimes there are challenges with that you might not anticipate.
Yeah, and Nicole, you're right. That's good advice, because we often see that there's a lot of money being left on the table, and brands do have a right to take that increase. But it is important, again, to get back to this idea of pivoting, that if you're going to make those moves, it's all a matter of degrees. You may overshoot the mark, or you may not. You may see an unintended consequences. So this is an example of a product that effectively increased price, which is great, but it did have a negative impact on organic rank. So what does that mean? Well, it just means that you have to have, if you're going to be making moves like this, that you're going to have some fluidity and flexibility. You may need to run a promotion to offset that. You may need to up your advertising spend to offset that. The most important thing is that you have visibility quickly, and you don't wait 2 weeks or a month to find out about this, that you're finding out about this very quickly so they can course correct.
Right, and plan ahead of time, right? So in the whole MAP police, the third party approval piece, running a coupon when your biggest other customer retailer is doing their biggest promotion of the year, probably not the best bet, right? So be strategic, understand which retailers are, what other platforms are running promotions for your products, even consider what's happening in brick and mortar, and then plan accordingly 3 months in advance to say, okay, how do I supplement or how do I complement the other promotions that are happening in the space, and keep in mind that I'm measuring my organic rank when that happens. So I wanted to give you just a couple of examples of wins that we've done for a couple of our brands that are very MAP conscious. They are definitely the leaders in the space. They want to make sure that they're holding their high level pricing, supporting their brick and mortar efforts, but then still making sure that they don't get lost in the shuffle versus a lot of knockoff brands or competitors, emerging brands in the space. So in this example for Beauty Blender, right, the best beauty sponge in the market, they by far own that term, but they're significantly more expensive than a lot of the knockoffs in the space. So how do we counter that by still supporting our brick and mortar or other retail sites? So what we've done is gotten creative around certain promotions or liquidation products, discontinued products that we can use to get new customers, but also use whether there's still consistency in the availability. So sometimes we see discontinued product and it's like, great, we can capture new customers. It's a lower price. Maybe they'll buy the full price product later on. That's good. But on Amazon, if it's going in and out of stock, then you're losing that traction. You're losing that review. So in this example with Beauty Blender, what we did is we created a liquidated or a discontinued our promotions product listing. So every time that they have products that they know they're going to discontinue, we're adding those as children to this one parent, keeping the reviews, the rankings, and then measuring share of voice or share of shelf after this is happening. So our goal with this test is basically to say, okay, maybe Beauty Blender, when they see the sponge at full price, they see the knockoffs next to it. How do we counter that? Let's get them in at a promotional deal that's not going to impact our other styles, but then still get new customers in that might end up buying the sponge later on. So that's one thing that has worked really well for us. The second one, another high-end beauty product, Malin & Gates, one of our other clients, this one worked out really well. They are very conscious of price, and I totally understand why. But at the same time, they're trying to sell a natural organic deodorant in a very, very, very competitive category on Amazon. So if you type in organic deodorant into Amazon, you'll probably guess some of the players there, but sometimes we see cost per clicks as high as $4, $6 a click, which is just super hard to stay profitable. So what we tested was that since March of this year, being very specific about promotions and then measuring the long-term ranking of that promotion. So in March, in April, we had a very short window, 35% coupon. Then we brought it back up to retail, full MSRP after that. And what you can see is between, on the left side of the graph, right, February, March, here was their ranking. We ran the promotion, and then you can see that the ranking stayed low, which is great to see, right? So we started at a higher ranking, we ran a promotion. Obviously, price went right back up after the next couple of days, but we saw some tail end, some flywheel effect impact ranking going forward. So that helped with sales. And then at the end of June, going into July, we ran a best deal. It was very specific, short term. And what we've seen overall, comparing Q2 2021 to Q2 2020, is a 44% decrease in ranking, which is great, and then an increase of 60% in sales. And just a quick asterisk here, I will tell you, yeah, maybe it's not apples to apples because we're comparing 2021 to COVID 2020. Well, I will tell you that they were already 8% up 2019 to 2020. So we felt pretty good that this was not just COVID math giving us this boost, but it was due to being very strategic in some of these deals, but still making sure that they're not so long-term that they impact the pricing integrity of the brand. The other thing that we're testing right now is playing with discontinued items and leveraging that pricing to drive traffic to the products that are halo product listings and still have products at full price. So coming back to our fun brand of toe socks, they release products about twice a year. When they do that, the previous season is discontinued. And typically in the past, we just kind of drop the price. We don't tell the brands that they're getting a deal. They just see that pricing. And this time what we're going to try is when we discount in the first 2 weeks, we're going to add a coupon. So we'll keep it at retail. We'll add a coupon of the 20% discount. And then after 2 weeks, then shift the MSRP on the seller side to drop it. And there's no longer a coupon. So we think that coupon incentive is going to trigger the rankings, right? Trigger some customers to maybe again purchase a product that has a lot of cheaper alternatives but don't have the quality. And then one other thing that I would say that we're doing a pretty good job of is in sponsored product ads on the branded side, or I'm sorry, on the non-branded side, we're using the cheaper discontinued products to show price. So in the image to the right here, you can see this style is discontinued. It's at $11.20. On the right, you can see the full parent offering that has that $11.20 discontinued style as well as the full price products, right? And we're using the sponsored product ad to bid on the child that is discontinued to drive traffic so that when they start search for yoga socks, for example, they see a cheaper price. And then if they want to buy that one, great. If not, they also have the other products that are full price. So that's other ways to kind of get around this pricing and be strategic in the way that you're running promotions. So in summary, Couple of things. One, watch out for new Amazon advertising releases. They are happening all the time, like almost daily. 2, think full strategy first, then ad spend. 3, prioritize your content optimizations. 4, determine your advertising target before setting a budget. So again, really, really clear on this one. If the goal is to acquire new customers, if it's to do market share, you're going to have to spend more. You're going to have to increase that tacos, and you're going to see the payoff a little bit later than just doing branded or bottom of funnel conversion campaigns. And then lastly, test promotions and measure ranking lift, but balance it with obviously your math and your MSRP and protecting your other retailers. There's ways to be creative, but make sure you're upfront with that. You're planning ahead, right? You're 3 to 6 months in advance. Hey, these are the specific windows that we're going to be doing promotions on these very specific products. Oh, I can't believe it, Aaron. 2:25. I thought we were going to go over. So I'll hand it back to you for any other questions.
No, literally perfect if we were going to time it, because we've got 2 minutes before we wrap it up here. So a couple people asking, can we get a copy of the deck? Is there any issue if we connect you with them and you shoot it out to them?
Yep, absolutely. So we'll send that out in our follow-up for sure.
Yeah, awesome. The other one, if people need a recording of it, ping Patrick at bwgconnect.com and we can get you a copy of the recording as well. Are there any thoughts really quick? I know across the board, in stock rates, any thoughts there? Back up, either, are you recommending like a digital age, like 3PL or something like that to do the drop shipping during the holiday season? Just had some few people ask on, hey, what about going out of stock? What does in-stock risk mitigation look like?
Oh, awesome. Okay, so on the 1P side, I guess is what I will say is that backups for what's about to happen in Q4 with potential stockouts, it's a great reason to have a hybrid strategy, right? Where you're working with Amazon 1P, maybe you don't have the ability to do drop ship with them, so you leverage other third-party sellers to have a fulfillment by merchant offering. That works really well. On the 3P side, as much as it's great to have very small sellers, it also puts you at risk if you're putting all of your eggs in one basket to make sure that that seller has stock, right? So what happens when they go out of stock? What I would say on our end, what we're doing is always making sure that we have an FBA, right, prime offering. If it goes out of stock, we have a fulfillment by merchant offering, which is fulfilling inventory out of our warehouse. And then in the backup that even we go out of stock, there's a drop ship option that Amazon places an order, the customer places an order, and then we drop ship it from the vendor. So that's the way that we are prepping for Q4 as it relates to inventory selection.
Yeah, awesome. No, absolutely love it. And that's, just really, here we go. For one more question, and then we're going to wrap this up. Some are recommending price increases during the holidays, Black Friday, due to out-of-stock fears. Thoughts on this strategy? Oh, interesting. Raising the price to slow sales.
Yeah, or decreasing ad spend, right? Because you don't want to drive, maybe we don't need to drive traffic to a listing that we know is going to go out of stock 2 weeks after Black Friday, right? So there's a balance there. I want to say test and measure, right? Because we don't want you to get in a scenario where you're like the Cheetos example, right? Where you increase the price so much that all of a sudden you lose organic rank and you have to then pay more on the back end to get back up in placement. I will say that we are in those scenarios when we know we're in a stock out, we're definitely slowing down ad spend to an extent. I'm not saying turn it off, but we're making our bids a little less aggressive. And then maybe we're not running coupons. We're not doing yet where we actually increase the retail price from where it is yet. Mostly because most of our brands are MAP protected, and as soon as you increase the price, you lose buy box. So I haven't seen anyone do that, but I have seen people cut back on promotions or advertising when they know they're going to go out of stock.
Awesome. Love it. I think with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up here. Thanks both of you, Nicole and Mike, so much for your time today. Thanks for the expertise. Anybody needs follow-up connections, you need any help in this space whatsoever, both of them come highly recommended from in the network across the board. More than happy to connect you with them, and so you can set up some time to connect. With that, also look for an email from us at BWG Connect. We're a giant networking group. The way we get the topics from these calls are just one-on-one conversations. Would love to set up some time with anybody on the phone today, and obviously more than happy to kind of give you a rundown, strategic overview of how the landscape is changing and the newest players that are popping up in the space. Thanks again, Mike. Thanks again, Nicole. Hope everybody has a fantastic Monday, a great rest of the week. Everybody take care, stay safe, and look forward to having you at a future event. All right, thanks again, everybody.